The American legal system has quietly turned into one of the most profitable industries in the world. Every year, hundreds of billions of dollars pass through our legal system, not necessarily because people are doing wrong or things need to be corrected, but because the system profits when people fight. Lawyers make money when you get sued. Litigation finance firms make money lending to plaintiffs and investing in cases. Even the courts make money through filing fees, penalties, settlements that can feed an entire ecosystem of professionals who don't really care who's right or who's wrong, only where the money's coming from. 80% of the money that enters the legal system does not go to the plaintiffs it is intended to reach. And that's the part nobody tells everyday Americans. Most of the times, the justice system is not about who's right, and that's why people who are reachable are the N1 targets in court. That's why in America, getting sued isn't a rare event anymore. Lawyers know a weak case can be leveraged into a settlement if it costs you enough to fight it. That's called legal extortion. It's cheaper to settle than it is to fight. You can do everything right. Run your business clean, treat people well, and still become someone else's lottery ticket because you haven't taken care of protecting your assets. My name is Douglas Lodmell, and for almost 30 years, I've fought against this system that profits off of hardworking Americans, and on some occasions, can take everything they've worked for, even when they've done nothing wrong. In today's video, I'm going to talk about this system so that you understand it and that you can protect yourself from it. So what is the business of lawsuits? The business of lawsuits is the business of attorneys. Attorneys make money on legal fees and, most importantly nowadays, on a contingent legal fee. Just so you understand, contingent fees were not allowed and certainly were discouraged through most of the history of the United States, and definitely in other countries like England, where our common law system comes from. It was seen as unseemly for a lawyer to take a contingent fee because it made them a participant in the outcome of the case. That made them much less likely to serve their first duty, which was as an officer of the court, with a duty to tell the court honestly what's happening. But if your fee is contingent on how much you're going to collect, well, your morals can pretty easily go out the window. And certainly that's what's happened in America. So today, most plaintiffs' attorneys will not work on an hourly or a fixed fee basis at all. They will only work on a contingent fee. Now, this might seem like it gives access to people who might not otherwise get access, but the reality is the cost of that has been overwhelming and completely destructive to our legal system. So here's how it works. You've seen the billboards and the advertisements all over town. The business of lawsuits is get cases. So when you call one of those lawyers and say, hey, I have had an accident, I have a sore wrist from work, I've had a dispute with my partner, whatever it is, a case is started. They sign you up on a contingent fee, which means they're going to get 30 to 50% of the eventual award or settlement, and you're going to get whatever's left. Doesn't cost you anything, so it's kind of like a free lottery ticket. Let me take a shot. What do I have to lose? So the target is typically first the insurance companies, especially if it's an auto accident, which is the number one reason people get into this lawsuit lottery. But it is not always stopping there. It's very easy for a case to exceed the insurance, or if you do have assets, for the plaintiff's attorney to look at you to contribute on top of what your insurance is already going to provide. So it's a numbers game for these lawyers. They simply need as many cases as they can. There's a pipeline for it. It takes time and money to invest in these cases, and that's where the second player comes in. We now have firms, people, individuals, investment funds that invest in lawsuits. Literally, they raise money and they invest in potential litigation. With who? The plaintiff's attorneys themselves. So the guys with the billboards are taking money from other people, investors, and when the case pays off, they're sharing that money with them. So we have taken something that's supposed to be serious and real for the resolution of disputes and turned it into a pure business model. And you are simply a cog in the whole wheel of that business model. If you have no assets, then the part you play is let's get you suing somebody. If you have assets, the part you play is you're going to get sued. So how do you get yourself out of that? Well, it's up to you, I can tell you that, because the legal system itself is not going to protect you from the system itself. So now that you understand the business, and by that I mean how it works and why it operates the way it does. But what happens when instead of somebody else, it's you, and you need to go to court? Let's talk about what really happens once that complaint hits your desk. So that's what the system looks like from the outside. But there's a harsh truth people don't want to face. Most people don't lose because the system is unfair. although it is. They lose because they were never set up for it in the first place. These are the most common mistakes Americans get caught every day without needing to be fraudulent or sloppy. So let's take a look at how that happens. So what are the most common mistakes people make? Well, first of all, they do nothing. They just rely on insurance and they figure nothing's going to happen to me. Now, if you don't have any assets, this is totally fine. You really don't have to do anything because you have nothing to lose. Or what you have to lose is already going to really be covered by the exemptions of your bankruptcy statute in your state, or insurance is going to cover it. But if you do have something to lose, and by that I mean if you have any level of assets at all, even a $200,000 or $300,000 estate that's not protected, then it's up to you to actually do something. What that means is that you need to set up specifically some tools that will protect your assets. Now, if you run a business, it means you need to segregate the risk of the business from the assets that you've already created by taking the money out of the business. One of the mistakes people do is that they leave all their assets in the very business where you're making your money. And that seems logical because that's where you're making your money. You're reinvesting it or you're just parking it there. But that's also the place with your greatest risk. That's where you're most likely to get sued in your business, from a client, from a patient, from a vendor, from somebody just walking in off the street. Doesn't matter. That's your biggest risk. So the last place you want to keep your valuable assets is in your business. Not to mention that there almost always is a negative tax consequence of you keeping assets in the business, especially if you're an S-corp. So that's mistake number one, is just doing nothing and thinking it's all going to be fine. Mistake number two is doing something but not doing it right. In other words, I had a call the other day and the lady said, I've got an LLC and I've got a lot of assets. Well, we went through her assets and she had a lot of assets, about $10 million of assets. She had done an LLC because she had heard that would be the best way to hold her assets. The problem is she did a single LLC and she put everything in it. And I mean everything. And this was fatal because one of those assets was a business and she had a business dispute. And so now the entire LLC is subject to the outcome of that dispute. And she has no idea how it's going to turn out, but likely she's going to lose. And now all of her assets are exposed. So she did something, but she did it wrong, which in this case was almost worse than doing nothing at all. So be sure if you're going to do something, you get help. You get professional help. Don't try to do it yourself. I tell my dentist clients, I will not be doing my own root canal no matter how many YouTube videos I watch. I want you to do it. I say the same to my clients. I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch, you should not be doing your own asset protection planning. The third mistake is you do something and you do get professional help and then you drop it and you do not fund properly. That is fatal because again, you did something, you got professional help, so you have it set up correctly, but then you don't put anything in it. So it's like, yeah, I went to the store, I got the great gun safe, I put it up, I bolted it to the floor, and then I never put my guns in there. And so when somebody grabs your gun and hurts somebody, your safe was worthless. The same is true with an asset protection structure. If you don't use it, which means you don't fund it, which means you don't put the assets into it, it's not any good. It's worthless. So it is critical that you don't do nothing. So do something. Don't do it yourself. Get professional help and then complete the job. Fund the plan. Put the assets in the structure. And that's another reason to get professional help. You want to have annual maintenance. You want to have somebody there that you can call to ask questions because this plan is not one and done. You're going to have to keep it updated and maintained over the years. As you grow and your assets grow, your plan is going to change. What you need is going to change. So it's critical that you have support and help and that you keep your plan maintained. So now that you see how easy it is to get caught, the next question is, how do you stay standing? Because you don't just need to fix your mistakes, you need a structure. Something that holds up when things go wrong, not just when they go right. That's where real asset protection starts. Designing a system that's simple when life is calm and strong when it's not. Let's talk about what that actually looks like. What an asset protection structure actually looks like is really legal tools. So the legal system is your threat. So your remedy is also the legal system. So what asset protection looks like is really three tools: limited liability companies, limited partnerships, and asset protection trusts. So how it works is that your assets will go into one of those three tools, and those three tools will be layered up in a stack. At the bottom of the stack is the limited liability company. What that's going to hold is risky assets, things like investment real estate, could be businesses, could be other investments that you might make, anything that could create risk in its own right. So a piece of real estate can create risk. So therefore, we do not want it outside and mixed with other safe assets. We want it insulated. So a limited liability company does that. Also, a car collection might be valuable, but it could also create risk because it's a physical thing. Cars go on the road, cars drive, cars get in accidents. So it needs to be wrapped up in a limited liability company first. So that's step one. That's at the bottom. Step two is what's called an asset management limited partnership. That's a holding company. It's going to go above the LLCs, and it's actually going to hold the LLCs. So it's going to create a second layer of protection. And this protection is domestic, just like the first layer, the LLCs. What it is it's called charging order protection. So you have charging order protection for the risky assets. Then you have those inside of a second tool called an asset management limited partnership, which has a diversity of jurisdiction and more charging order protection. The asset management limited partnership can do something else. It can hold your safe assets, like your cash and your stocks and your bonds and your crypto. Anything that doesn't create risk, doesn't have a lock or a key or engine or a wing or a propeller, those things create risk. Cash accounts and investment accounts do not. So they can go directly in the asset management limited partnership. And then the third tool is the asset protection trust. And there's three ways you can do an asset protection trust. You can do it as a fully foreign trust, you can do it as a fully domestic trust, or you can do it as a hybrid called a bridge trust. So the foreign trust is great. It's incredibly strong. It has an incredible track record. It's also expensive, has a lot of compliance, and you do not have direct control of the trust. A domestic trust is less expensive. However, its track record is not nearly as good. So from a standpoint of protection and security, I don't mark it high. And the third option is the bridge trust. The bridge trust is a foreign asset protection trust, bridged back and treated as a domestic trust for tax purposes. So what you get is you get foreign levels of protection and domestic levels of simplicity. That's the trust I use for 95% of my clients. The other 5%, we do go straight offshore. We don't use the domestic only asset protection trust at all. We just don't think it's strong enough. So now that you have your LLCs, your asset management limited partnership, and your bridge trust in place, you're going to fund it. Real estate and risky assets go in the LLCs, cash, securities, and liquid assets go into the holding company, and then the bridge trust owns all of it. The bridge trust can also do one more thing. It can own your primary residence. This is important because your primary residence in most states is not fully protected. Therefore, we need something that protects it, but without jeopardizing your benefits of home ownership, which is tax-free capital gain, home mortgage interest deduction, and your homestead exemption. If you put your home in an LLC under the holding company, you're jeopardizing those three things. However, if you put your home in the bridge trust, which is a grantor trust, you definitely maintain all three of those benefits and still get bridge trust protection around your home. So now you've set up the structure and now you've funded the structure. Now you can start to sleep easy. So now you see what's really going on. Lawsuits aren't random anymore. They're targeted toward people who've built something worth taking. But once you understand how the system actually works, you also understand this. You can protect yourself without hiding anything, 100% legally. And if that's what you want to do, and you're ready to take control, there's a link in the description to book your asset protection analysis. It's completely free, and it's the first step to making your assets visible but unreachable. Remember, it's your money.